God gave us a law. What's the purpose of laws in society? Just to ruin your fun? Why does a government outlaw certain things? To protect the people, to protect the community. And that's why God gave us a law. God's law is based on His love. He's trying to protect us from the destruction of sin. And so when God says don't sin, He has a good reason for that. When God says don't get drunk, when God says don't have premarital sex, when God says don't be a homosexual, God has a very good reason for that. But a law is nothing if there's no punishment. If there's no punishment to the law has no authority. So God gave a very severe punishment, eternity in the lake of fire, eternity in hell. So now God's law has authority because it's got a punishment. But we've broken God's law. We've transgressed God's commandments. We deserve punishment in hell. So how can God pardon us and still maintain the authority of His law? How could God forgive us and still maintain the authority and influence of His law? It's by the blood atonement of Jesus Christ. Now that Jesus provided a substitute for the penalty of the law, now that bloodshed is a substitute for eternal punishment,
what's the penalty?
God can pardon.
What is He pardoning? I don't understand that. Are you referring to original sin?
No, I'm talking about your own sin.
Okay. Well, He died 2,000 years before I was born, almost.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to how He's going to die for a sin I haven't committed yet. Like,
Well, it was a general atonement. He died. You missed it. Now, he said, if Jesus died 2,000 years ago, how could Jesus die for the sins He hasn't done yet? Well, it was a general atonement. Jesus died, shedding His blood as a substitute for the penalty of the law for all those who were alive, for all who were alive, and for all who would be alive. So it was just a general substitution. And now that a substitute for the penalty of the law is provided,
is that a substitute?
Because
now that we have evolution, we can no longer say it's for original sin since Adam and Eve aren't real.
I've never believed in it. I've never believed in original sin. The Bible doesn't teach original sin. Original sin is a Gnostic heresy.
It's not a Gnostic heresy, it's a Catholic heresy.
The Catholics are semi-Gnostics.
Well, no.
But Jesus died for all men everywhere, and because His blood has been shed, God can remit the penalty you deserve. God can grant the remission of sins.
What about women?
Well, women especially need to be saved.
Wow, I thought see that.
Women especially need Jesus Christ. Because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.
What physical evidence do you have to show that Jesus was the Son of God and that He actually did die for anybody's sins? Because I think that He got caught by a large number of people and then hung up on a cross.
I have the word, I have the testimony, I have the testimony of eyewitnesses. I have the testimony of eyewitnesses who shed their own blood in martyrdom.
They saw that. The people that wrote that book saw that.
They heard the teachings of Christ. They saw Him walk on water. They saw Him heal the sick. They saw Him rise from the dead.
They weren't even alive in the same generation as Jesus.
Matthew was a disciple of Jesus.
Okay.
Mark was a disciple of Jesus.
Write the entire book.
John was a disciple of Jesus. And they taught what Jesus taught. They said He rose from the dead, and they shed their blood in martyrdom for their testimony of what they had. He did meet Jesus on the road of Damascus. Jesus appeared to him in a vision.
A vision doesn't count.
Here was a man. Saul was persecuting the church. Saul was killing Christians, and then Jesus Christ appeared to him, and he gave his life to the Lord, and he built up the Christian church. Something happened to Saul. Something happened that turned him into Paul. What happened to him? He met Jesus.
Oh, yes. Wasn't that whenever he was on his way? There was no witnesses, and he saw a vision of Jesus, never met Him.
He was persecuting the church. What do you think changed his life?
It seems like he's a Paul. politician.
What do you think?
I can get a bunch of fucking money.
Money?
Tell people I talked to Jesus after he's already dead.
He was shipwrecked. He was whipped. He was beheaded by Caesar.
Jesus never actually.
Paul was beheaded by Caesar.
Jewish.
Why would Paul be beheaded? Why would Paul lay down his life? Why would he do that?
He's a jackass.
Because he was lying? Because he was
He's a jackass.
No, because he saw Jesus.
Back when we thought the earth.
Jesus appeared to him, and Jesus said, "Why do you persecute me, Saul? Why do you persecute me?" And Paul gave his life to Jesus. He was persecuted severely. He was beheaded by Nero. And he wrote part of the New Testament.
You don't believe people who claim to have seen Muhammad in dreams.
I'm sorry I called you ignorant, and I'm sorry I yelled at you. I was angry.
Oh, thank you. God bless you. So some people will die for what they believe to be true, but Paul and the apostles died for what they claimed to have eyewitness. They died for what they said they saw. Now, all of the disciples, except for Judas, of course, all of the disciples claimed to see Jesus rise from the dead. Was that a mass delusion? Were they all eating mushrooms?
They had hashish back then.
Were they just tripping on acid? I remember I used to trip on acid and mushrooms, and I never saw the same things my friends were seeing. And they never saw the things that I was seeing. There is no such thing as a group delusion. There's an individual delusion, but not a mass delusion.
Wait. What do you call the thing in the 1930s? You know, when they had this radio show, they were like, we're being invaded by aliens.
Yeah, but they were not having a vision. That was mass hysteria based upon a real radio show they were all listening to. But if one man trips acid and another man trips acid, they will not see the same thing at the same time in the same way. But all of the 11 disciples, of course not Judas, the 12, the 11 disciples all claimed to see Jesus rise from the dead. And they shed their blood in martyrdom under the Roman Empire for what they claimed to have eyewitnessed. They were not liars, they were not lunatics, they were telling the truth. Jesus rose from the dead and defeated death.
I'm curious if they actually
What's the sun say?
In his house under lay, Cthulhu lies dead but dreaming.
Ah, Cthulhu! I am saying God!
So, okay, so, I mean, people have claimed to have seen Muhammad in dreams. And in visions.
Yeah, well, the disciples not only, they didn't claim just visions, they eyewitnessed Jesus walking on water.
People claim to have seen eyewitness accounts of Muhammad ascending to heaven on a horse.
How many souls have you saved?
I don't know about any eyewitnesses that say that.
Yeah.
Very few. Very few people ever get saved, ever. Because Jesus said, broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many go that way. But narrow is the way that leads to life, and few there are that find it. Very few people ever get saved. Most college students go to hell. Most people in Florida are going to hell. Most people in America are going to hell. Most people in the world are going to hell. Very few people are on the narrow road. Very few people come to Jesus Christ.
I wish you could